Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to start off by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. My name is Matthew Mossman, and I'm the president of the Truro-Colchester Chamber of Commerce. And I'd like to welcome everyone to our Cumberland-Colchester Federal Candidates Debate. It is a tradition for our chamber to host a federal candidate debate, and tonight is hosted by the Amherst Area Chamber of Commerce and Colchester Chamber of Commerce. And I would like to take this moment to thank our sponsor this evening, the Nova Scotia Associate of Realtors. Before we begin, I do want to just take one moment and acknowledge some of the tragedies that have happened in our communities here recently, this week and today. And our thoughts are with everyone's families and loved ones. I would like to introduce the candidates for our riding of Cumberland-Colchester. Dr. Stephen Ellis with the Conservative Party of Canada. Dr. Jillian Foster, Green Party of Canada. Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada. And Daniel Osborne, New Democrat Party. For the questions this evening, the Chamber has not provided the candidates with questions in advance, and we will not be taking questions from the floor. All those on Zoom will be muted for the debate. Now, I'm just going to go over quickly the rules and procedures for this evening. Candidates have presented themselves to the moderator at least 15 minutes prior to the call, and we have done a draw for their speaking order. Candidates are now seated in the order of their speaking order draw. Each candidate will be allotted 3 minutes to make an opening statement. The order of these statements will be determined and have been determined in advance by a draw. Candidates are not to interrupt each other in opening statements or closing statements. And I do ask that you please speak up for the microphone so our friends at home watching on Zoom can hear. During the question and answer period, candidates will be asked questions which have previously been submitted to us at the Chamber. I will be responsible for ensuring questions are directed to the appropriate candidate. And just a reminder, because we are a chamber, that a lot of these questions are business-oriented questions. I will rule out of order any question deemed inappropriate, offensive, derogatory, or that attacks the integrity of the candidate or brings the chamber's reputation into dispute. I will also rule out of order if any person attempts to use the meeting as a platform for grandstanding. Answers to the questions will be limited to 2 minutes to ensure as wide a discussion as possible. And those 2 minutes also includes rebuttal if you so choose. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes for closing statements. The order for closing statements will be opposite to the order of opening statements. And the candidates have been provided water because hydration is important. So we will start with our opening statements, and based on our draw, our first candidate to speak is Dr. Jillian Foster of the Green Party of Canada.
Hello, greetings to everybody. I know that we touched upon a few things that were not so great in our community of late. I would just like to say that I'm smart and that life is fragile. And that sudden announcements and things that change your life is why I actually entered politics. It probably began in earnest in 2012 when a newspaper article from struck home. I was sitting in my doctor's office. I had sore knees, sore shoulders, and knees. I couldn't speak. Can I stand up?
Yes.
Do I need to start again? So I was sitting in my doctor's office, my health problems, wanting to get back to addressing the animals that I looked at, but I couldn't speak. I was speechless. I was crying. He said, you have a choice. You either go about your life and let the government and everybody railroad your farm and what's going on, or you decide to do something. At that time, I decided to do something, and the journey since 2012 has took me to food activism, going away to work, hearing people's problems all over the place, and realizing that my skills as a veterinarian are not enough to address the problems of our area and to help other people. So it is because I have an acute awareness of what's going on out there, what's going on with the planet, what's going on with people's lives, and the root causes of all that. So I myself feel that as a Canadian, I became Canadian in 1979, it is my duty to do as I can. And I feel that my skills, my ability to problem solve, my ability to see what's really going on will be better as we experience it.
Thank you. Next for opening remarks based on our draw is Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be joining you here today in Truro, the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Je suis très heureux de pouvoir me joindre à vous à Truro, qui est situé également sur les terres ancestrales et non cédées des peuples Mi'kmaq. Small businesses like restaurants, hairdressers, and neighborhood grocery stores, and the people that work for them are the cornerstone of our communities and the backbone of our economy. These businesses and the workers and communities who rely on them will be critical to our recovery and long-term growth. That's why Budget 2021 invests in Canada's businesses, nonprofits, and municipalities, so we can create the jobs, strengthen the economy, and grow the middle class. And I'm proud to say that as Member of Parliament for the last 2 years, I've been able to bring about $87 million to Cumberland-Colchester for this purpose. This builds on the work that we're already doing to support Canadian businesses throughout this pandemic. We've helped more than 5 million Canadians keep their jobs, and more than 162,000 organizations pay their rent thanks to programs like wage subsidy, rent subsidy, and lockdown support. And through the Canada Emergency Business Account, we've helped over 866,000 businesses pay their bills. We'll continue to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to support businesses and workers through this crisis and build a better Canada. We know the pandemic has disproportionately impacted women, Indigenous peoples, racialized peoples, and other underrepresented communities. And that's why our government will be creating the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Development Program to support diverse entrepreneurs. We also know the tourism sector has been hardest hit by the economic impacts of the pandemic, and we've been listening. That's why we've put in place many measures to support the tourism sector. We know more help is needed, and in Budget 2021, we announced $1 billion in targeted assistance, the creation of $500 million tourism relief fund administered by the regional development agencies, $200 million to support major festivals and events, another $200 million to support local festivals, celebrations, and sporting events, and showcase our regions. Also, $100 million to Destination Canada for marketing campaigns, and will continue to support the tourism industry. We also know that small businesses continue to have difficulty making ends meet, so that's why we've expanded our range of small business supports, including a more accessible Canada Small Business Financing Program that covers operating expenses and startup costs, a digital adoption program, and decisive action to lower credit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also remind all the candidates, please try to speak as loudly as you possibly can so all our friends at home watching on Zoom can hear. Next, for opening statements based on draw, Dr. Stephen Ellis with the Conservative Party of Canada.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Amherst area and Truro-Colchester Chamber of Commerce for having us all here for this important event this evening. Also to the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors for sponsoring the event. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Stephen Ellis. I've been married to Deborah for 31 years. She is also a small business owner here in Truro. We have 3 children and 2 grandchildren. Recently, I've left my practice as a family physician before I had this great opportunity to run as a member of Parliament. Those folks who I looked after for all those years are well covered by Dr. Jamie Brandy. I want you all to know that I didn't become my life as a doctor, even though, of course, you know you can't really do that. I did grow up in a small place in New Brunswick called Lincoln, in a trailer park in which my mom still lives. Knowing that I couldn't afford to put myself through medical school, I joined the military, and I had the opportunity to serve this great country from coast to coast. To me, that's very important. I've also had an opportunity to be deployed overseas. During my time here in Truro, I've volunteered at many different organizations. 2 that are very important to me are a walk with the dog. Lots of people think it's a walk with the dog, but clearly it isn't. It's an opportunity for people to socialize and exercise and to meet with local physicians and to answer some of their less personal questions. I've also worked with a project called the Guatemala Outreach Project in, of course, Guatemala. We work with indigenous people there who have open indoor cooking fires, often with dirt floors, and their needs are often affected significantly by these open fires, and their health is negatively affected, disproportionately affecting both women and children. I joined the Conservative Party to help shape the Canada that I know and love. In Canada's recovery plan that we have, we will secure jobs, creating 1 million jobs in the next year. We're going to secure accountability by cleaning up the corruption mess in Ottawa. We are going to secure mental health, and all of you know that has been a significant issue during the pandemic. We are going to secure the country, making sure that we have medicines, which we have had in short supply, vaccines, which we have not had, and personal protective equipment, which we can make here in our own hometown. We'll also secure the economy by balancing the budget in the next decade. Finally, the most important thing that I hear over and over at the doorsteps, of which I've knocked on about 3,000, is healthcare. We're going to create a new agreement with the provinces, and in the first 100 days, we'll increase the funding by 6% to provinces, which is $60 billion over 10 years. I think this is very important, and the constituents here in Cumberland-Colchester do as well. I look forward to being a member of Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. And to finish off our opening statements is Daniel Osborne with the New Democratic Party.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking the Chambers of Commerce for hosting this debate. I would also like to be, I guess, the last to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I would lastly like to thank everybody here in Truro and across Cumberland-Colchester for watching along at home and asking the important questions. You're playing a very critical role in our democracy. Tonight, you're going to hear from 4 of us who would like to earn the opportunity of a lifetime to represent you in Ottawa. Myself, Ms. Zann, Dr. Ellis, and Dr. Foster are all individuals who care very deeply about this community. We care about our neighbors, we care about all the small towns in this region, and any one of us would be lucky to be able to serve you in Ottawa. However, we all have very different visions for the future of this region, the future of this country, and the economic recovery that we are now going to have to undertake as a result of the pandemic. I hope that over the next 2 hours, I am able to convince all of you that my vision and my party's vision for the future of this country, one where everybody has access to the medications they need, one where we put thousands of Canadians to work, earning lots of money at green jobs, and one where First Nations communities are treated with respect and dignity future worth voting for on September 20th. Thank you, Wilab.
Thank you very much. We're now going to start with the question portion of this evening. And just a reminder to everyone that these questions were all submitted to our chamber and have a bit of a business theme as we are in the Chamber of Commerce. So I'm going to start with the first question, and speaking order for this question will begin with Dr. Jillian Foster, then Lenore Zann, Dr. Stephen Ellis, and Dan Osborne. Your question. You have all chosen to enter this race with a goal in mind to serve the residents of Cumberland-Colchester. What do you expect to accomplish during your term as member of Parliament? Dr. Jillian Foster, you are up first. 2 minutes, please.
Hello. Yes. I actually would like to be a conscience. I don't expect the Green Party to win the election and form a government. Nobody does, but maybe it will. If it doesn't, then I expect to be able to be somebody who can see what tries to get snuck through, somebody who can serve the community well on committees, somebody who can be a conscience for the area. I would also therefore like to bring attention to our ruralness and make sure that the almost tyranny of the majority of what is in Parliament, or the overwhelming urbanness, doesn't lose sight of the fact of where food comes from and where the economy starts. And that is where we can actually grow something so that we can make things, that other people can move things around, sell and trade, and other people can gain from that. I'd love to see that I'd like people to think that if they voted, they would vote for somebody who is stability and confidence and can represent them well.
Thank you. Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada.
Hi there, thank you very much. And as a member of government in a minority situation, I can tell you it's very difficult sometimes to get bills passed that you need to get passed in order to help Canadians. And we need to be able to work across the aisles with other parties to be able to get the job done. I believe I've done that for the last 2 years as a member of Parliament, and also the last 10 years before that as a MLA, Truro, Hill, Salmon River, both in majority government and then as an opposition member. One of the things that the Liberal Party of Canada believes in is protecting people's health so that they can get back to work, and protecting the businesses that are the backbone of our society so that we can continue to thrive here. It's our belief that Canada is poised to make a huge comeback, and we are well placed both financially and also with the rollout of the vaccines, so that we can all roll our sleeves up and get back to work in our full capacity. We have a beautiful country here. We have a beautiful riding in Cumberland-Colchester. I want to see more tourism here. I would like to make sure that our seniors are looked after, that there's more long-term care, there are more doctors, and to that, the government has announced $9 billion that is targeted towards hiring new doctors, nurses, and nurse practitioners, and shorter wait times for people, which I feel is very, very important. But we also need to protect our health care and not let the Conservative Party of Canada privatize it, which is what they plan to do. With that, I want to say we also believe in a clean, green future. We believe in protecting the environment and also trying to halt climate change as quickly as possible. And to that, we intend to get off fossil fuels as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Same question now to Dr. Stephen Ellis, Conservative Party of Canada.
Matthew, I'm just wondering if I might answer or pose a question with what just heard. Ms. Zann.
You have 2 minutes, sir. You can use 2 minutes as you will.
Okay, thank you. You know, I find it interesting that the Liberals have now decided to talk about healthcare after knocking on 3,000 doors, and that's the major issue that I've heard. They've had 6 years to fix it, and of course, we all know that it's done nothing but gotten worse. Therefore, when I look at the things that we need to accomplish here, one of the things that's really, really important to me is to be able to sit down with people in every community that we've visited here during the last 29 days. People want to have a dialogue. People want to see their MP in their little community, and they want to be able to know that their voices are being heard. That is very important to people because we are Maritimers after all. Part of the team that I want to be part of is going to lead us out of this pandemic. We've been mired here for 18 months, and for me, that's not the kind of life that I want to lead. We need to go back and we need to secure jobs. We need to get people back to work. We need to secure accountability that we talked about originally in Ottawa, and seeing Justin Trudeau and his Liberals continuing to have messes after messes after messes. And again, that's not the kind of government that I want. We also want to look after mental health and healthcare of Canadians. We think that's very, very important. And again, that's one of the major issues that I've heard over and over again as I'm at people's doorsteps. Securing medicines and vaccines and personal protective equipment, also very, very important for us. And getting the economy back on track such that we need to balance the books. When we look at the tremendous debt that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have created of $1.1 trillion, that's a trillion with a T. We also want to rebuild main streets and get people back to work and support small communities. That's the kind of candidate that I want to live.
Thank you very much. And now to Daniel Osborne, the New Democratic Party.
Look, the reality that we have to acknowledge here that no matter who is elected on September 20th, no member of parliament is going to deliver on every one of their values and every one of their campaign promises. We don't live in a dictatorship. We live in a democracy where everybody has to work together. But the thing that I want to let you know is that the last 2 years have proven when you send a New Democrat to Ottawa, we fight for you. We continue fighting, even when the circumstances get tough, and we get things done. Things like the $2,000 Canada Emergency Response Benefit. When Justin Trudeau's government first introduced that to the House of Commons, he wanted to make it $1,000. My party leader, Jagmeet Singh, and our team of New Democrats in Ottawa kept fighting until that was a $2,000 a month plan so that every Canadian could afford to survive during the first wave of the pandemic. And so that's why I want to go to Ottawa to work for you, to fight for things that matter, fight for things that we need to accomplish. But it can't all be fighting. A lot of it has to be listening. And I'm so proud to be able to say that's what I've been doing over the last 3 or 4 weeks on the doorstep. I've been having conversations with you and not just telling you what I want to do, but also listening to your concerns. We've seen from consecutive governments, whether they were Chrétien, Martin, Harper, or Trudeau, that the government is not all that interested in listening to the concerns of every Canadian like you and I. I want to be different, and a new democratic government will be different.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our second question, which was submitted to us at the Chamber, starting in order with Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada. The question for each one of you is, how do you see the role of the business community in strengthening our communities? And what are the top 3 things that you will do as MP to encourage and support business growth in this region? And we'll begin with Lenore Zann.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I have to say I have worked very closely with many of the businesses here in Cumberland-Colchester in the last 12 years, and particularly as a federal member, these last 2 years, trying to help businesses survive a global pandemic that nobody expected or imagined, and that has devastated lives around the world, businesses around the world. And here in Cumberland-Colchester, it has been a major challenge, but I believe I've been there every step of the way, listening to our businesses, taking their messages back to government, and then government working on solutions to try to help businesses survive And when we heard that there were businesses that were not included or were unable to get the help we were offering, switching it on a dime and then extending it so those businesses can be helped as well. And that's why we believe that the Canada Small Business Finance Program is going to be so important. It's a startup, scale up, accessing new markets that need access to financing. And we're expanding the financing program loans up to 500,000, and introducing a line of credit up to 150,000, and that will include startup costs and intangible assets like sales software, so that you can bring your businesses to the next level. This is about making sure that businesses not only survive but thrive, and I am committed to working with all of you to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Dr. Stephen Ellis, Conservative Party of Canada.
Thank you very much. One of the things that we do know, again, as I said, traveling around our very large riding, is that people north of the tolls often feel forgotten. They often say that they have not even been seen by our incumbent member of parliament. That is a tragedy. When we look at those kind of things, we know that we need to work very hard to rebuild main streets in the small towns, and we also need to give them loans of up to $200,000 in order to do that, with the insufficient amounts that unfortunately the Liberal government has already provided. We also know that we need to create good workers. We need people who have appropriate training. We need to support their apprenticeship programs with significant amounts of money. We know that we need to get Canadians back to work, and that is so important, because when people have money in their pocket, they also contribute to our economy, and they have a dignified existence in which they can afford things. We also know that the terrible inflation that is beginning to happen at the current time, with amounts around 3.7%, is going to be an absolute tragedy for people as time goes on. Those types of things are not going to help Canadians here living in Cumberland-Colchester. The other thing that we really think is important is getting people connected. We know that during the pandemic, that children wanting to go to school or people wanting to run businesses from home are at a significant disadvantage when they don't have high-speed internet. This is going to be a challenge, but certainly we believe that this is an important part, and we want to accomplish this by 2025. That being said, we need to work with local businesses to be able to do this, and we know that that's going to allow them to thrive and to employ more people and be able to have people stay in their rural homes as well.
Thank you. Daniel Osborne, Democratic Party.
Thank you. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Here in Truro, in Cumberland-Colchester, and right across the country, when small businesses do well, we're all doing well. That's why one of my biggest values is the belief that we need to raise our minimum wage in Canada to a living wage. Across the country, it's difficult for members of our community to spend money at small businesses like cafes, pubs, restaurants, and shops, because they don't have enough money to be spending there in the first place. We have folks in this community and in my community in Amherst who are worried about their mortgage payments, they're worried about their rent payments, keeping the lights on, groceries, and at the end of the day, when all the bills are accounted for, there's not enough money left in their pockets to spend at small businesses. That's why I believe we need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, because when folks have money left over after the bills are paid, they spend it at small businesses, further stimulating our economy.
Thank you. And finally, on our second question, Dr. Jillian Foster, Green Party of Canada. And I'll just remind all of our candidates once again to please speak up as loudly as you can so everyone at home on Zoom can hear. Dr. Foster.
I am going to say something that you might not see on the Green Party platform, but in reality you do. Don't know which philosopher said it, but it was that money comes from virtue, not virtue from money. Money is a tool. It is not something that we actually should be living towards. We should be living towards a livable income for our residents. We should be working towards other things. There are two either make something that people need, be in a needs revenue stream or a wants revenue stream. The needs revenue stream over time. The wants is more.
I apologize if this has been established, but how is this being paid for? Is this being split between?
I don't know what that is. Okay. Okay. So there are two revenue streams. You're either doing something or producing something that people need or something that people want. One is sustainable and weathers ups and downs. One of them is more profitable and more subject to risk. There is one thing that is wrong with the taxation system in Canada. There is no credit given for contribution to community to those who are not in a taxable position. I propose that tax laws need to change so something can be done about that. And I would propose.
Please continue for a couple more seconds.
In Ottawa, I would vote for the best of what is there, but still be a voice to do things completely differently in some areas.
Thank you. We'll now go to our third question, which was submitted to the chambers. And starting us off will be Dr. Stephen Ellis, Conservative Party of Canada. The question is, across the country, there are housing shortages for people of all walks of life. There is a dire need for more housing options here in Cumberland-Colchester. What is your party's plan to assist in increasing housing inventory, along with making it easier for people to purchase or build new homes? Dr. Stephen Ellis.
Thank you very much. Housing, of course, and affordable living is a very important part of the Canadian dream. We do know that one of the main concerns we have is losing the primary residence exemption, in which many of us Canadians store money that we'll need for retirement. That's something that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals want to get rid of. We know that that's on their agenda, and we know that that's not acceptable. One of the pledges that we have made is to build 1 million homes in the next year in Canada. Why is that important? Of course, if there's more homes to buy, then that really should help reduce the amount of cost per home. The other hope that we have is giving people choice. People now, if you buy a home and you are with one lender, to move to another lender, you need to have another stress test done, and that is unacceptable. If you can do that without having a stress test and get a cheaper loan, a cheaper mortgage, then that will be significantly better for people. And of course, that will increase competition amongst lenders as well. The other thing is, with respect to the mortgage stress test, is fixing it so that it doesn't discriminate against small business owners, contractors, and other non-permanent employees. That is going to be very, very important. And we also want to encourage a new market in 7 to 10-year mortgages, which will provide stability for first-time home buyers and for lenders as well. Those things are going to be very, very important for us and for Canada as we move forward. The final thing that we want to do, of course, is to prevent foreign investors being able to buy up significant amounts of Canadian real estate, and of course then charging you more. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Osborne, New Democratic Party.
I do appreciate this question. I mean, look, housing is one of the fundamentals of being a Canadian citizen. You grow up, you move out of your parents' house, and you begin renting your own place. And then eventually, down the line, you're supposed to be able to afford your own house to buy and move into as well. So this is a hard-hitting thing that Canadians all across the country are feeling it. We're feeling it especially here in Nova Scotia and in Cumberland-Colchester. This fact of life is getting harder and harder, and it's getting less and less frequent for more and more Canadians. We have to look at this from 2 different angles. We have a shortage of housing in this country, but we also have an issue with affordability. The affordability is the reason why the NDP is in favor of introducing permanent rent control in jurisdictions across the country. We also have to address the supply issue, however, for people who are looking to buy a home. My party has a plan to build 250 1,000 homes across the country over the next 5 years. It may not be as many as plans that other parties have, but these will be high-quality, multi-story homes that will be environmentally sustainable. We also want to reintroduce 30-year terms on CMHC insured mortgages, which will ensure lower mortgage payments every month, meaning that more Canadians will be able to break into this market. My party also supports a temporary ban on foreign investors buying up Canadian homes, because that is unfortunately a major part of the issue why there's an issue with our market.
Thank you. And Dr. Jillian Foster, please.
So the Green Party platform can be found online, and there is a lot of ideas and a lot of things that can work for increasing affordability of housing and the homeless crisis. I'd like to go to the home or where you live as being one of the major determinants of health. The other is the sustenance, the things you have to eat, and the third one is the nurture, the community interactions and healthcare. If you fail to address the least supported area of that equation, then you have poor health. And poverty, what is in Cumberland County more so than Colchester, but just because of the demographics between urban and rural, poverty is one of those major determinants of health, and housing needs to be affordable. So the Green Party has taken note of not only there's not enough, there's not good enough in some areas, and poverty levels with the guaranteed livable income, but also taken note of the extra houses that people have that are not being used, that are open, and the vacancies, and the big disparagement in wealth. The Green Party has a plan to do something about that. And the party also ensures the housing conditions of people. Cumberland County, though, doesn't matter about mortgages, those sort of things, because the majority of people don't have a wage to be able to afford to purchase a house to live with the home.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 4, submitted to our chambers. We're going to start with Daniel Osborne, New Democratic Party.
I don't think I answered that question. It's Lenore.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies, Lenore. Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada.
Thank you. Yes, I believe homelessness and affordable housing is extremely important to all of us right across Canada. I know that many years ago, everybody was promised a house and a job or two, a white picket fence, and lots of money to retire on. And unfortunately, that Canadian, American, Western dream has not come true for many people. And that's why our government is planning on helping to end chronic homelessness by appointing a federal housing advocate to guide elimination of chronic homelessness, creating a national home buyers bill of rights. We are going to regulate foreign ownership, review the tax treatment of large corporate owners, and put in place policies to curb excessive profits while protecting small independent landlords. That is very important. We have already put in $72 billion for Canada's National Housing Strategy, a 10-year plan to address affordable housing and homelessness. And we've introduced legislation, the right of Canadians to access adequate housing. If re-elected, we plan to introduce a new rent-to-own program. We've already put in $72 billion and $4 billion for Canada Housing Benefit Agreement as well. However, we want to put in $1 billion in loans and grants for rent-to-own projects, a new tax-free first home savings account for Canadians, for first-time buyers under 40 to save up to $40,000 tax-free for their home. We want to double the first-time home buyers tax credit from $5,000 to $10,000 and build and revitalize nearly 1.4 million homes by 2025-26. We want to work with the municipalities as well to identify vacant, underused properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My apologies.
That's okay.
Now that I believe everyone's answered that question, we'll move on to number 4, submitted to our chambers, and we will start with Dan Osborne, New Democratic Party. The question for the candidates is COVID debt, climate change costs, the need to repair our aging infrastructure. The costs are going up all around us. Our economic growth has flatlined for the past 25 years. A serious, bold strategy to grow our economy is the only way forward. What is your party's plan to pay for this? And we'll start with Daniel Osborne, New Democratic Party.
Thank you. That's a very good question. I mean, we're at a crossroads here with several issues, but we do not have the opportunity to wait any longer for solutions. With regards to the climate crisis, our globe is warming at an alarming rate, and we've heard from the International Panel on Climate Change that we have years, not decades, years left to reduce our emissions in order to have a habitable planet in the future. With regard to infrastructure, I've spoken to many people in this riding, especially the areas in and around Spring Hill in my county, where their roads are crumbling. Their infrastructure is at an all-time low. If we wait any longer to start working on repairs, somebody is going to get hurt. And I know that's something that none of us would like to see. I get this question a lot, being the New Democratic candidate. You've got a lot of good plans. How are you going to pay for them? We have to confront the reality that's come to be over the last 2 years during the COVID pandemic. There are people in this country and companies in this country like Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft that have made profits to the tune of billions of dollars like we've never seen before. What some parties would like you to believe is that we are going to solve these issues, but it's going to be on the backs of middle-class taxpayers like you and I believe that we need to create a wealth tax so that we can redistribute money from these billionaires and large corporations that profited off the pandemic and use it to pay for a just green COVID recovery, for a new infrastructure deal, for a better future for all Canadians.
Thank you. Dr. Jillian Foster, the Green Party of Canada, please.
Again, the Green Party does have many plans in place. The Green Party is founded essentially on being green. Green is the color of chlorophyll. That's where life comes from. That's where photosynthesis. We have to be acutely aware of the need for humans to live with nature as opposed to try and take from nature. The Green Party doesn't only have a plan for halting climate issues in Canada, but also for supporting regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture is agriculture that actually takes carbon from the air and puts it into the soil. It is also the kind of agriculture that these 2 counties were founded on. It is essentially growing grass, forestry, regenerative. That is what the Green Party is hoping to do and influence other parties to do so. Funding. I'm starting at agriculture because all economies are based on something there to start the economy that's growing. Then other people in the economy needs or want based. They either make something with what's grown, they take and shift it around, or shake it around, or they take stuff off it. All the systems and all the subsidies, so-called subsidies, programs for farmers, do not address real funding and cause competition amongst farmers. The Green Party proposes that those programs are fair and equitable and do not pit one farmer against another. And I do have something else that I'd like to add in my closing remarks. I hopefully will be able to do that. I think the
Thank you. Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I first of all like to start off by saying Canada entered this pandemic with the strongest fiscal position of any G7 country, and we retain that position today. We predicted a deficit for 2020-2021 of $381.6 billion. We have spent less than we provisioned for, and the deficit for 2021 is actually $354.2 billion. That being said, this crisis demands targeted, time-limited support to keep people and businesses afloat and to build our way out of the COVID-19 recession. We are taking on debt so that Canadian households and families do not have to. Canada's debt serving costs are at a 100-year low. In 1995, Canada's debt serving costs as a percentage of GDP were 6%. Today, even after the unprecedented battle of the pandemic, that figure is expected to be 0.9%. And experience shows that economies that withdrew their support too quickly after the financial crisis in 2008-9 experienced slower growth afterwards. So we are going to follow the advice of the experts, the IMF, the OFBC, which have urged governments to maintain substantial fiscal support over the recovery phase. And let me assure you that we understand the value of wise and prudent fiscal management, and that is the policy of our government, which we will continue.
Thank you very much. And finally, to answer this question, Dr. Stephen Ellis, Conservative Party of Canada.
Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody knows by now that Canada's Conservatives have a fully costed platform. To me, that's very, very important. We also know, as I mentioned earlier, that the debt currently stands at $1.1 trillion, greater than it's ever been. We also know that the cost of living is the highest it's been in the last 10 years. Canada's Conservatives need to do something about this. We think it's important to gain advice from other bodies, but we also think it's important that Canadians run our country. We need to lower food prices. We need to make sure that there's no price fixing. We need to open up banking so there's more competition for Canadians so that bank fees can be less. We also have a plan for a GST holiday to help inject money back into the economy. We have a plan to lower your cell phone bill. We have a plan to have internet coverage in rural areas by 2025. We have a plan to reject mergers of large corporations that negatively affect Canadians, that reduce jobs and reduce competition. We also have raises for Canadian workers. We're going to increase the Canadian workers' benefit. It's going to give the majority of workers approximately $1 per hour raise. We're going to double the disability supplement. We are going to balance the budget the next decade. If we do not get this spending under control, then Canada will continue to be in difficulty with respect to our finances. And that's not the way that most Canadians want to continue to live their lives.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to number 5 for our questions, and we're going to begin with Dr. Jillian Foster of the Green Party of Canada. And the question is this: Nova Scotia is playing a leadership role in Canada in the fight against climate change, primarily through the work of Efficiency Nova Scotia. The federal government to date has been very supportive of this, yet there is concern the push to reduce of fossil fuel usage will have a dramatic impact on our transportation and manufacturing sectors. What will your party do to balance our economy with climate change action? Starting us off will be Dr. Jillian Foster of the Green Party of Canada, please.
Okay, so the transportation sector is basically one of the leaders of fossil fuels going up into the air and those sort of things. So they are the ones that is key. If you take goods from one place and move them to the other place, that's transportation. But if you didn't have to move them because you supported a local producers, local manufacturing, and people in your community rather than people from away, that would reduce transportation. So go local is part of what's said. There's also a call for an increased support to municipalities involved in green projects. There's also a call to make more affordable transportation for public transportation, so everybody doesn't have to own their own car in areas like that. There are all sorts of things that are there to reduce the need for fossil fuels, as well as to help us to do things ourselves so we don't need to move things around. The Green Party is really the only party that is paying attention to where funding will go and how tax credits will be, things like that. And those who are supporting green measures will be those who get help. Those who are not and use increasing fossil fuels, they are the ones that won't get extra help, but they won't necessarily be punished immediately. There'll be a transition.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada.
Thank you very much. This is a very important question as well. And actually, I believe that protecting the environment and creating clean energy, it goes hand in hand with building our economy. In fact, we have said that we are going to phase out the public financing of fossil fuel from crown corporations and introduce a clean electricity standard to achieve a 100% net zero emitting electricity system by 2035. We're going to create a pan-Canadian grid council, and if re-elected, we're having $5,000 grants for homeowner retrofits, loans up to $40,000 for national net zero emissions building strategy, more from fossil fuel-based heating systems to electrification. And in Nova Scotia, that's very important because many of us have oil furnaces, which it's expensive to change over, but we need to do that. We're investing in electricity in buses, in HRM, which actually houses half of our population. We have approximately 900,000 Nova Scotians and about 500,000 of them live in Halifax. I think this is going to go a long way towards helping us breathe clean air in the rest of the province. We're introducing a new Buy Clean strategy. We are developing a rural transit solutions and creating more opportunities for women and LGBTQ and other underrepresented people to get into the energy sector and become a global leader in battery recycling. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next in line to answer the question is Dr. Stephen Ellis, Conservative Party of Canada.
Thank you very much. This question really points to the fact that we know as Canada that we have a transition period in which we need to move from fossil fuels to a greener economy. And Canada's Conservatives really have the answer to that. And that is the personal low carbon savings account. What is that, you might ask? Well, the important thing is that we know over the next several years, we're still going to be using fossil fuels in one way or another. We live in a very, very rural constituency here in Cumberland-Colchester, of which I've traveled a significant distance over the last 29 days. When people do require to use hydrocarbons, they will be able to put money aside in a low carbon savings account, which then they can use in a manner which is appropriate for themselves or for their families. So that then with this money, they can choose to do things such as buying local fruits and vegetables. They can also perhaps buy a bicycle. And I know that I've said this to you before, I do like to ride my bicycle. I'm used to campaigning. I think that is an important thing. We also know that you can then use this money in your low carbon savings account to do things such as buy a furnace for your home. I think it's important that Canadians have a choice and that they are part of the green future. They also have the choice to decide how to spend the money that is important for them, for themselves, and for their families. Choice is an important thing in Canada, and we do know that we need to move to a much greener economy. And with our low carbon savings account, we as Canada's Conservatives are ready, willing, and able to do that.
Thank you. And lastly, Daniel Osborne, New Democratic Party.
Thank you. Look, we don't have to pick between building our economy and building a safer, healthier, more natural environment for future generations. Some would have you believe that it's going to be, some would have you believe that we cannot afford a Green New Deal in Canada. We cannot afford a green infrastructure plan and a green recovery. But personally, I feel like we can't afford not to. We have the option right now in Canada to create tens of thousands of new jobs, permanent, high-paying jobs, building and maintaining solar farms, wind farms, and other types of green infrastructure projects that will benefit our country for generations to come. And this is what I would like to see our country do going forward.
Thank you very much. We are now through question 5. We'll proceed on to question 6. We're going to begin with Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada. Again, these questions were submitted to us by our chamber members and the community. With more of our population retiring than joining the workforce, we need to retain and attract additional people to enter the workforce. We are currently at a workforce crisis where many businesses are limiting hours due to lack of staff. What are your solutions or plan for addressing the workforce challenges of today? We'll begin with Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada.
Thank you very much. And I think this is also an excellent question. One of the things we've noticed during the pandemic is that women and also racialized people have been the folks who've been most severely hurt by losing their jobs and having to stay at home, not being able to go out and work. For this very reason, we introduced SERVE, which has helped to keep food on people's tables. It's also provided baby formula, diapers, and all of the things that go with raising a family. People have been panicking during the early months of the pandemic, and I believe that the majority of Canadians are very grateful that they've been able to have our support to get through this. Now we're entering a new phase, and people are getting back to work. We are creating over 1 million new jobs, and we want the green economy to be first and foremost in everyone's mind. And for that reason, we are doing a just transition and a green transition to be able to help people. Women need to get back to the workforce. For this reason, they need to be able to have a choice, to be able to choose whether or not they have children, and we support their choice in that as well. Also, truck drivers, good news there. We want to help trucks become more electric and efficient. And the big trucks that are on the roads, we want to be able to help them stay in their work, but also be able to contribute to the green economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, for the question, Dr. Stephen Ellis, Conservative Party of Canada.
Thank you. As I've traveled around Cumberland-Colchester, I've met with lots of business leaders, and this is a very, very important question. Where are we going to get workers? And as we drive up and down Robie Street, for instance, here at Truro, we know that there's help wanted signs, not necessarily just for entry-level jobs. We know that there are help wanted signs there for people with technical abilities. Canada's Conservatives have some ideas on how to fix this, so we have a plan. We are talking about the Canada Job Search Plan, and with that, we are going to actually help employers pay salaries of people who have been unemployed. The first 6 months will pay 25% of someone's salary. If it is someone who's been unemployed for a long time, we can pay actually up to 50% of their salary. We also know that as we go forward, we need more people who have very specific amounts of training and very specific things. We have money to actually help people get back to school. We can help them with their loans as well. We also know, as I've traveled this great constituency, that farms need workers. And we also know that we will continue to support the temporary foreign worker plan as well. So those things are going to be important as we go forward. We do know it's a significant problem, I want everybody to know that Canada's Conservatives have a tried and true plan on how we're actually going to accomplish getting people back to work and helping businesses get the economy rolling again, which we know is important, given the significant amount of debt that we have incurred and the ongoing deficits which we are facing with the current Liberal government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, with the New Democratic Party, Daniel Osborne.
We do have a workforce issue right now in Canada. I've been up and down the roads in Amherst and Truro and all of the other communities in this district, and I've spoken with a few business owners who are having a difficult time finding employees. One of the biggest issues that we're facing right now is that we have Canadians, hardworking Canadians, who either can't work or don't want to go to work. They left our workforce during the first wave. They left our workforce during the first wave of the pandemic, and now they need to be welcomed back in. We can't force anybody back into the workforce. That's not the solution. But we can make it more enticing to go to work in Cumberland-Colchester and across the country. One of the ways that I would like to do this is with a $10 per day daycare program. Our workforce issue right now disproportionately affects low-income families and it disproportionately affects women. We have to work on getting women back into our workforce, and that starts by making sure their children are taken care of. It shouldn't be the fact any longer that women or grandparents have to stay home with the children. Everybody who wants to be able to go to work should be able to do so. This is also one of the major reasons why I support, again, a $15 an hour minimum wage. When you pay people what they're worth, when you pay them with respect and dignity, they're far more likely to re-enter the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Jillian Foster with the Green Party of Canada.
About 20 years ago, there was a statistic that said it basically cost $15,000 a year to go to work. The Green Party has as a platform, an honest platform, if you want to look at page 41, a guaranteed livable income. That is not something that would be like serve, in that you can all be qualified to serve. It would be something that would replace a lot of provincial programs, municipal programs that have an cause inequities in the community. And it would not penalize people for going to work, so people could also go to work. Also in that plan is a plan for rural revitalization, and that is on page 29 if anybody cares to look. We also have a plan for life with dignity and the social nets to be good. But there is also, and nobody has addressed this, an education to expand universal programs for post-secondary education, where tuition will not cost. There's components in there for looking at student loans that are already there and building into a system where it doesn't cost to go to school if you're committed or to learn. That will then allow the poor, the people in poverty in this area, to actually get an education and be able to fulfill the jobs that can be made here. I still want to come back to the fact that it's almost going to be an impossibility given the changes in demographics here.
I didn't address any of that.
Revitalization.
Thank you very much. Now on to number 7. We're going to begin this question with Dr. Stephen Ellis of the Conservative Party of Canada. The question is, our international competitors are working to improve their performance and create good jobs for their citizens. We know that to succeed in the face of fierce competition, we must reduce trade barriers and generate sustained business investment, jobs, and growth here at home, not just in the short term, but for many years. How will you achieve this? And we'll begin with Dr. Stephen Ellis, Conservative Party of Canada.
Thanks very much. We do know that Canada is performing on an international stage. That being said, some of the things and the challenges that we have here in Cumberland-Colchester is the significant rural nature of our local riding here. When I travel around and I meet with farmers and other producers, dairy farmers, other kinds of agricultural people, we do know that this is a rural area. So part of this is related to helping out rural farmers. Part of it's related to small businesses. One of our main thrusts with small businesses will be rebuilding main streets. And as we travel around, we do notice that lots of the small rural areas have significant problems with small businesses, meaning there are very few. That then causes people to move from these small communities into larger urban centers. That, of course, leads to the decay of our rural way of life. We know that we want to invest in small businesses, $200,000 in small businesses, much greater than the $60,000 which is now offered by the current Liberal government. We also know that for Canadians willing to invest in small business, we know that we want to give them a 25% tax credit on the first $100,000, which will enable them to do that. We also know that we need to continue with supply management, which helps with products, of course, from our dairy and poultry and our egg sector. We know that that's very important. We know that farmers are optimistic. However, we know that with these essential products, which are also sensitive in the nature of their ability to stay on the shelf, we know that supply management helps sort out the issues with the up and down related to the market forces from those particular products. So those are the kind of things that we want to continue and to support our small businesses and our rural communities here in Canada.
Thank you very much. Next, Daniel Osborne, New Democratic Party.
Canada is playing on the worldwide stage, and we're trading and conducting business on it too. I've spoken to many folks inside of my party, outside of it, inside my community, outside of there, who believe that neither NAFTA nor CUSMA were great deals for Canadians. There were Canadians who lost their jobs. There were folks in my community who lost their businesses because of these trade deals. We're going to continue forever into the future, trading with the United States, trading with Mexico, with China, with so many foreign partners. That's why I believe that now more than ever, we need a federal government who's willing to sit down with farmers, with business owners, with industry specialists, and with union representatives to work on a fair deal so that Canadian consumers can benefit and so can our businesses, and so that we're not playing at an unfair advantage to our international partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Jillian Foster, Green Party of Canada.
The Canadian federal government has always been either red or blue. All of those governments have always seemed to favor those who are in the position, the enviable position of having to pay tax and giving tax credits. Those tax credits, they're fine, but the people who are going to be going into business, starting businesses, and those who are willing to take the plunge have no way in. So instead of being solely a tax credit system, I would propose that those who take the risk to do the right thing for the community, those who go into debt because there is a need in the community to grow food, to do something that we are importing otherwise, so an import replacement instead of just export-based businesses, because we could be exporting a lot of things that we're not even self-sufficient in this area. I would propose that there is credit given to federal debt, and hopefully the provinces will follow suit, but those who do things that if they were in a taxable position would get a credit for. So everybody has got all this debt that they've taken on, and there needs to be a way for them to pay it back equitably. And I say the system right now is bent in favor of those who actually don't need the tax credits as much as those who need the help to get established and make the economy good again.
Thank you very much. And we'll finish off this question with Lenore Zann, Liberal Party of Canada.
Thanks very much. Really, we want all our businesses to succeed and to benefit from the digital economy, from Main Street retail shops to entrepreneurs to manufacturers. And that's why our government is making an historic $4 billion investment into the Canada Digital Adoption Program. This is going to support businesses going digital and take advantage of e-commerce opportunities, ensuring that no business is left behind in the economy of the future. And we want to create over 1 million jobs for young Canadians, including diverse entrepreneurs, women, Blacks, Indigenous Canadians. We're introducing a Canada Recovery Hiring Program, $595 million investment to help businesses pivot to recovery with incentives to hire back, grow hours, and increase wages. We've also announced a Canada-wide learning and childcare system. We're going to be investing $30 billion over the next 5 years to establish a $10 per day Canada-wide learning and childcare system. This ensures that women do not get left behind. And we're supporting women as well through COVID-19 by building on the initial $5 billion investment in the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy through a suite of federal investments and activities totaling $146.9 million to address remaining persistent barriers and support growth opportunities for women's businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our next question. I have my order track, starting with Osborne. And this is the question. With a wide variety of agricultural crops, animals produced in Cumberland-Colchester, what could you do to support the increase in processing in this region to grow a sustainable local economy along with increasing food security? We'll start with Daniel Osborne.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. Agriculture is not the issue with which I am most familiar, but I am very passionate about making life as affordable as possible for Canadians and residents of Cumberland-Colchester. I also believe that every Canadian should have the right to be putting healthy food in their body. That's why I would be committed to working with farmers markets associations, and working with municipalities to make sure that our farms are run well and efficiently, making sure that every Canadian has money in their pocket to go to a grocery store instead of a food bank to get farm fresh Canadian raised food. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Jillian Foster.
Well, the last 25 years of my life, it's 40, but the last 25 years, I've been acutely aware of the lack of processing that there is for most foodstuffs, but especially for the one food that we can grow well here and meet in Cumberland-Colchester. We really could not only feed ourselves, feed the province, and export as much again. And that is the grass-fed beef. As far as processing goes, there are different rules. There are federal rules, there are provincial rules. It almost as if like we're regulated out of business and regulated out of being using ingenuity and being able to actually do what can be done. It used to be that we had a chief veterinary officer in Nova Scotia that was supposed to be able to oversee inspection of meats and make decisions on things without having to follow a pocketbook because they knew what to do. It's only been in the last year that there's been a chief veterinary officer, and they haven't even been given that power yet.
all those things though require funding. There needs to be funding that is in terms of stable, long-term funding for both livestock and processing. And there needs to be a way that there can be a merging of regulations to the point that food safety and food quality is not harmed and people can still buy local.
Thank you very much. Lenore Zann, member for Canada.
Thanks very much for this question, and it is very important to us here in Cumberland-Colchester. We have a number of farmers and farms right across the area, and I've been honored to go and meet with many farmers, blueberry farmers, livestock farmers, poultry farmers, and I have to say I'm very, very favorable about working with the supply managed sectors to determine compensation within the first year of a new mandate, especially with regards to the results of changes to CETA and CPTP. We have already said that we will give 2.7 million to compensate farmers because of these changes. However, more needs to be done. Dairy farmers have received cash payments of 468 million in 2021, 469 million this year, 21-22, and will be receiving 468 million in 2022-23. However, we need, there's another 100 million for dairy processors to adapt to CETA. These are all very important, and we need to also address climate change because of the droughts that we have been experiencing for blueberry farmers, livestock farmers, and we need to be on top of that as well. But again, I believe that we need to support our farmers. They work very hard, and we need to eat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finishing off this question is Dr. Stephen Ellis, Conservative Party.
Thank you. As I mentioned previously, in the last 29 days, I have had the opportunity to actually visit a multitude of farms, farming a multitude of things here in Cumberland-Colchester. We do have a very strong work ethic here, a strong history of agriculture that we need to continue to support, and Canada's Conservatives are willing and able to do that. We'll partner with the private sector to look at moving research funds from agriculture, partnering, as I said, with the private sector to look at other issues such as can we actually financially viably have year-round crops here in Cumberland-Colchester. We have to support business risk management programs such as Agri-Invest and Agri-Reassure so that we can continue to ensure that the optimistic farmers who, as I said, I've had an opportunity to meet, are able to continue to grow crops here and to have a workforce that will enable them to do that. We need to be mindful, of course, of temporary foreign workers who come here, who are paid through this program and by the farmers, and who take the money back to sometimes their families, which have significant financial struggles. We also need to understand that we need a fair tax on the family farm so that generationally those farms will continue to be part of our backbone here in Cumberland-Colchester. We also need to be mindful of business practices which can fix prices, which unfairly disadvantage farmers, processors, and producers. That is, of course, not very helpful. Finally, we also need to find new markets during our free trade negotiations with the European Union and the Trans-Pacific nations as well. Agriculture is important to us here in Canada. As I mentioned earlier, we will continue to support supply management as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have come to the last question that will have answered. Starting off this question with Dr. Jillian Foster from Canada. And the question for the candidates is this. By when do you believe the CRA should have completed a review of their principles and guidelines? And what are the most critical areas they need to address? And we'll begin with Dr. Jillian Foster, the Green Party.
Okay. So CRA principles and guidelines, I am not exactly sure. Did you say by when do you believe, I didn't get that word.
I can repeat the question one more time. By when do you believe the CRA should have completed a review of their principles and guidelines? And what are the most critical areas that it needs to address?
It seems that I have been in business, I'm still in business with family farm, but it seems that everything we do is we're doing to actually collect tax and submit to the CRA. HST, everything has to fit the process. The CRA, I think the review needs to be comprehensive and not just look at what they are doing now, but look to the future and see what else the CRA could do so that lots of other programs that don't need to actually have their own administrators. So the CRA, the data that the CRA collects, I believe should be used for more purposes, such as addressing loans and repayments and allowing credit for contribution to community, where if you were in a taxable position, you would get a tax credit, but you don't because you're not. I guess that says stop.
Thank you very much. Next is Lenore Zann from the Prairie Canada.
Thank you very much. I have to say, when it comes to the CRA, I have been talking to a lot of constituents who are very upset because they feel they've been targeted for audits, when in fact they don't make much money. And they see that many corporations are parking their money outside of Canada's borders in tax-free havens. And one of the things our government plans to do is clean up that mess and get on board trying to make sure that Canada receives all of the taxes that it should be receiving from the big earners, as opposed to going after small businesses and people who are underprivileged. I know that many people who are self-employed have been audited, for instance, and it's very difficult sometimes to explain to the CRA what exactly their expenses are for and why they expended them. But I would say that CRA needs to clean up its act, and I'm all in favor of a review, and a review happening as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Dr. Stephen Ellis, Senator from Canada.
Thanks very much. The Canada Revenue Agency, of course, is what helps keep this country running, in the sense that that's how we pay things via the government, with tax dollars. That being said, I'm reasonably familiar with their processes, given the fact that I've run a small business here for the last 22 years. As I mentioned, my wife does as well. We will ensure that the CRA is responsive to the needs of Canadians. We need them to deliver a quality service and advice, and we need them to respect small businesses and focus their efforts on wealthy tax evaders and big corporations. We will launch a comprehensive review of Canada's tax system to improve competitiveness, bring down rates, and perhaps most importantly for most folks, simplify the rules. We are going to make the taxpayer ombudsman an officer of parliament, order-making authority, and we'll also impose a duty of care on the CRA, which of course is very important. We will measure and report on the tax gap in detail by a type of taxation and reason for the shortfall, similar to the UK model, so that the CRA resources can be allocated where problems truly do exist. These things will be very important. It's also important that the CRA's penalties are directed less severely, perhaps, against first-time offenders, and more importantly, on those who are large offenders and who are repeat offenders. We will also allow businesses with less than $60,000 in revenues to use simple cash accounting. These are the ways that we will make the CRA more responsive to the needs of Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Daniel Osborne, Democratic Party.
Thank you. I don't know anybody who loves Revenue Canada, but I think most people would agree that there are some very systemic issues with the CRA, issues of corruption. And those are things that we need to tackle head on, absolutely. Look, if I didn't pay my taxes, I know that I would get a $1,000 fine from the CRA. But for some reason, when major corporations and billionaires in this country hide money offshore so that they don't have to pay taxes, they don't get any consequences for that. Personally, I am in favor of a review and a restructuring of the Canada Revenue Agency so that this type of corruption that we've seen in recent years could be completely prohibited. And I'd like to see both of these done as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This comes to the end of our question portion of this evening, and we are going to move on to closing remarks. Just a reminder for each one of the candidates, you do have 3 minutes for your closing remarks. And we're going to go in the opposite order of which we started. So we're going to actually start with Daniel Osborne with the New Democratic Party to kick us off with his closing remarks.
Thank you. Look, I am an Amherstonian. I grew up in Cumberland County. This has been my home my entire life. Most of you, somewhere in Cumberland-Colchester is your home as well. That's why I'm running for this election. We need a member of parliament in Cumberland-Colchester we need a member of parliament in Cumberland-Colchester who cares for this riding, who cares for our home, who will fight to make it a better place. My party and I have a solid plan about how to make this a better place and a better country for everybody living here. I believe that we can live in a country where the minimum wage is a living wage. A country where we can truly say that we are a leader on environmental and climate change related issues. I believe we can live in a country where residents of small towns like Spring Hill aren't sitting around wondering, not even when, but if their crumbling roads, sidewalks, and infrastructure will be replaced or upgraded. I think that there's a lot of hope in this district. I think that we can be hopeful, we can vote in a way that makes sure we can have this future I dream of, the future I know so many voters in this district dream of. As Ms. Zann keeps reminding us every time she brings up her 10-year record as the New Democratic MLA for Truro, Bible Hill, Millbrook, Salmon River, when you elect a New Democrat in Canada, we fight for you. We deliver results and we get things done. Just in the last year and a half, we got a $2,000 Canada Emergency Response Benefit. That was something that benefited real Canadians like you and I. We also delivered on paid sick days for Canadians. At the end of the day, I'm a listener. I'm a carer and a fighter. And that's why I'm asking you to vote for me on September 20th. I'm somebody young, I'm somebody fresh, I'm Dan Osborne. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Dr. Stephen Ellis with the Conservative Party of Canada.
Thank you very much. Once again, I would like to say thank you to the Truro Colchester Chamber, the Amherst Area Chamber as well, for organizing this important debate, and also to the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors for their sponsorship. I want to be very clear that Canada's Conservatives have a valid and detailed plan to secure the future of Canada by securing jobs in the economy, by securing accountability, by securing health and mental health, and by doing so, the future for you and your family. Over the last month, I've had the opportunity to knock on, as I've said previously, 3,000 doors, from Advocate to Pugwash, from the Amherst Shore to Whitburn. We have a vast riding, and the overarching and overwhelming principle and concern that people have is related to their health care. Some people may say that that is not a federal issue. Well, majority of the funding that we have for healthcare will come from the federal coffers. So for me, that's very important. It's important that someone knows the healthcare system that can help it get modified. I've had the opportunity already to discuss this problem with Dr. Catherine Smart, who is the president of the Canadian Medical Association. And together we can work to rebuild this healthcare system that is in a shambles and is affecting people's daily life every day. For me, it's important that I had the opportunity to live my version of the Canadian dream. I guess my liberal counterpart believes that it's over. I don't think so. My Canadian dream consisted of having a job, raising a family, d'être capable dans les deux langues officielles du Canada, to live in a safe community, to get an education, and many more things. For me, that continues to be an important objective. I have had that opportunity, continue to have it. I want you and your family to have that opportunity to live your version of the Canadian dream. And as your member of parliament, I want to be there to support you to do that, to have those important conversations face to face, that hear what your interests, your objectives are, what is facing your community. Those things are important to me. So September 20th, by marking an X for Dr. Stephen Ellis, you will elect me as your member of parliament, and those are the objectives that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lenore Zann.
Merci tout le monde et j'apprécie les gens pour cette opportunité. Thank you for the opportunity. Friends, we can't afford to move backward, not in the fight against COVID-19, not in the climate crisis, not on healthcare, nor childcare, not for seniors, workers, and their families. This is our moment to decide where our country goes. Do we go forwards or do we go backwards? I believe that for civility, compassion, and inclusion, we must go forward. A Canada-wide early learning and childcare system will reduce the average cost of childcare to an average $10 a day. This is affordable. We've already signed agreements with 8 of the provinces and territories, covering nearly half of the children under 6 across Canada. But Erin O'Toole wants to rip up these agreements. Women will get left behind in our recovery, and this will hold our workforce back. We cannot let that happen. With regards to housing, we're going to help renters become owners and save for a down payment faster, end blind bidding, and put a stop to foreign ownership. We plan to make the dream of home ownership a reality for more Canadians while building more affordable housing, an element which is completely absent from the Conservative platform. With regards to climate change, we'll continue to create more jobs, cleaner communities, and less pollution. We have a plan to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 and grow a clean economy. We need to move forward. When it comes to keeping Canadians safe, our Liberal government has taken the strongest action ever to remove dangerous guns from our communities and prevent illegal weapons from crossing our borders. We need to work forward on this issue. Erin O'Toole is in the pocket of the gun lobby, and his platform says that he will repeal the ban on 1,500 military-style assault weapons. We cannot let that happen. And when it comes to vaccinations, we know that getting the job done on vaccines will get Canadians back to work, prevent future lockdowns, and keep all of us safe. Erin O'Toole would repeal our regulations that make vaccines mandatory to travel on planes, trains, and cruise ships. Only the Liberals will move Canada forward, and I hope to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, the closing remarks. Dr. Foster of the Green Party.
I don't know if you guys can see the banner. It's actually one of the few banners that I asked to be made. I am the Green Party candidate, and thanks to a step taken by the Harbour government, where there was a subsidy per quota put in that was taken away. And the Liberal government came along and didn't really invest that. There is no longer the same kind of funding for political parties that are not of the big parties because they've already got a coffin. So you might have seen signs around. Those, the majority of them, except for a couple of banners, are recycled and reused signs. That's why they don't have my name on them. Doing what we can with what we have, finding answers, finding solutions, making plans, diagnosing is what I have spent my professional career doing. And all of it is being done within the limits and the confines of basically my patients, but my clients. I would like you to take note that I echo the good of what the other parties have said. Those goods are all part of the Green Party platform. But I would like to add that one of the things that I say to my clients is the biggest reason for treatment failure is failure to prevent at the same time. You have heard a lot of treatments, you have heard a lot of those sort of things from the other parties, but the Green Party is the only party that recognizes that life comes from virtue. A bit like money comes from virtue. That life is what is important, not money. And it's the only party that embraces the socially just programs and pays attention to the future and doing something real so that humanity can continue, so that Canadians continue, and that there is a planet to live on. If you still haven't voted yet, I'd like you to take a risk, do the extraordinary, and use the power of the secret ballot to do what has never been done before in this riding.
Thank you very much. Clearly, the phone is ready for this ending of the evening, so we are going to wrap up things here, but I'd like to take a moment and thank all of the candidates for joining us here this evening. Respecting our questions with a little bit of a sway towards business, obviously, with us being a chamber, and the rules. You did help make my evening a lot easier. Thank you. And to speaking to those at home tonight in Cumberland-Colchester, and those who will view this video on YouTube in the days after, we would really like to encourage everyone to get out and vote on Monday, September the 20th. And a thank you to our sponsor, the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors, and of course the Amherst Area Chamber of Commerce and the Colchester Chamber of Commerce. We thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you.